the most important thing whenever you started to try to run any program, you do anything in machine, is a function. I already have discussed what functions are in my set theory video, but here I'm going to explain it again in a different example, with a different example. So a function is something which takes multiple inputs. It could get multiple input from multiple sources, but it produces a single output. And by that single output means it just gives a single value in return. Always, it could be anything which we wanted. Okay, to be precise. So to understand it better what functions are, I'm gonna take an example of my friend's marriage anniversary, Arshdeep. So I mean, I know both of them, the bride and groom. I actually know them from my school. So uh, what he said is on the call, on the message, that they were having a party and I should be there, and for that I arrived on the time. I should be arriving on the time. I should be there. We were having fun. It's just a little party. So the task was just a party, which being told by him. He has given me a time. He's given me that what's the occasion is. So I know that what exactly I have to do. Maybe dancing, maybe having some chit chat with my friends, having a discussion with my friends after meeting a while. It's been a while. I haven't met my friends so long. So that was an occasion. We were having some little fun over there, enjoying, joking, and all sort of other stuff. So you started to see that there are so many inputs to this, and my single output, the single value which I have to do in return, is just being over there, and or maybe if I say just to be the part of that party. That's my entire values, and I have to return to my home again. So this is exactly how a function execution works. So whenever you started to write any code, and your machine itself is a function, because right now I'm feeding my input from this camera, it's going over there, it's taking a bunch of inputs from a keyboard, from my drawing tab and everything, and then it's going to produce a single output over your machine on your screen right now. So this is how a function works: takes multiple inputs, produces a single output. So if, for example, if we started to look into more into what functions exactly are, so he has given me multiple bunch of inputs, and I have to perform certain tasks. And that's what a system does. It performs certain tasks, defined tasks. It always are going to be defined. They're always going to be, in a step way, in procedures. And then I have to do what exactly is being into the instruction. If I started, if I just went over there and start hitting my friend, like that would be something which nobody was expecting. So your function should be defined. It does what it needs to do, and it should be, concise, returns a value. It shouldn't be like that you just didn't know. For example, if I went over the party and I just return immediately after a while, and my friend just actually didn't know that where I went, and he started searching me, and then he be like, maybe I just went away from there, I just left, and that would make him maybe a little sad. The possibilities for that could be any emergency, any sort of problem which might occur. And that usually what happens with program too. Your program might also, the function which the method which are the steps which you have written, might got interrupted, got maybe some wrong value, so it might not able to process it further, and maybe it has to take some exit because some conditions didn't met. So there could be the possibility with me that could any emergency at my home, maybe with some other friend outside, so I might have to run away immediately. Then the other possibility is that I went over there, I started enjoying, and after a while maybe I said like I have to go, this is the problem, this is the thing. And he'd be like, oh, okay, fine, makes sense, like you can go, there is no problem. Or maybe I waited till the end of the party, and I just be there, and then he'd be like, okay, so you have done your entire execution, you can go, that was really good that you were there. So this is what exactly how your function works, how your program works. It takes certain inputs, it performs something, and it went away. You can think of this more in a sense of a train. So your train is going to always have, ending with a cross, or maybe there is another bogie which is being installed at the back of the train. Possibly it's highly being attached to the cargo trains where the cargoes are there, and then it's at the end, so the other station master, or when from whatever the station that is passing through, they know that it is being complete, it's not been broken in between, the train is not being separated in between, and it's fully, and it went through completely. So this exactly how something ends needs to be tell to the system that this thing has completed its execution. Okay, so this is one of the most crucial step whenever you're starting programming. And a memory I've already discussed in previous video, you can go and check out over there. We're gonna see a little bit about memory, because we're gonna focus on two things: function and memory at the earliest, because the pointers and all these things is also going to be told earlier instead of a little later part in this video. So that's what my approach is. Let's try to get into the screen and let's try to see that what exactly a program is. How do we write a program in C++? So here we are not going to install anything. We're gonna do it online. Replit is something I used a few times in college, so I remember it, and it's quite good. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. Okay, that's what today's time is. So now here what we are doing is, I just went over there, I just went to Google. It's simple. Okay, so Bing is there. They have said it for, but Google search is a little better than Bing. So all you have to do is go over here and you can just open your applet, and it's a simple UI. You just have to do a sign up, a quick sign up, not too much of a complex thing. But okay, so after coming here, what I did is just change the theme. I just went over here, I just picked any dark theme. You can, select any dark theme from here, or maybe light, it's up to you. And you could use maybe hacker theme, it's up to you. So it's quite easy, just you have to go and select the theme and use the theme. That's it, that's all you have to do. Now at home, Replit has a lot of things, bounties and community. It's not sponsored. It's nothing nothing here is sponsored. It's free. So I just like the platform, just explaining that there are a few things here, bounties and all these things. If you're interested, go look into it. So what I'm gonna do is just creating a REPL here quickly. We're gonna select a template. I'm gonna use the C++ because we are learning C++ here. So I'm gonna name it CPP English. Is for the English audience, and it's public. I'm not gonna we don't want to pay anything. Like, who pays, man? Let it be public. Let's everyone see them. Okay, so here's our few things which I'm gonna tell you. So this is the very first thing, which is a file. And to know more about file, I've made a video in Linux part, you can see, but I'll gonna explain it a little here also, so don't worry about it. I'm gonna explain this thing. There is this console thing. This word, remember, it's gonna be a really important word which we gonna encounter here in just a while. Okay, so console is coming from your time when the graphical user interfaces weren't there. Okay, so you don't be hurry like, hey, what this word is. Console just means this thing right in front of you, this thing, as you can see. So if I do ls, that means list all the things right here. So it's just showing me that what other things right here. And you can see a few other things. That's what a Linux terminal is. It's a shell program. It's a dollar symbol is standing there, it's shell. And here it's just a simple thing. You can see more explanation about this in my Linux series. So it's there. I've explained it with the help of a Age of Empire game. So you can go and see over there. It's a little different way of explaining, but that's how I like. So here, let's try to go get back to the console. This is the very first thing you're gonna see. This program, whatever this is, you can run if you want. Everyone just went over there and started run, and that's like, hey, hello world, it's working, yay, we wrote our first program. Like, no, the very first thing which you encounter right here is a function, and this is something what I was talking about, a function. Okay, and this is basically the thing which does everything in a machine. Your entire system is a function, everything is a function, and it's coming from the theoretical part of the mathematics. So there are few things, a few strange looking things here. I'm going to explain what all these are. Okay, so don't worry about it. So one of the thing that I think we could start thinking about a program execution maybe, but let's try to see that what is going on here. So it's a file, again, a main.cpp. See, your system could be having multiple files, and it's all coming from the time of the when Linux started to developing, because C languages they're very common, which played a huge role in development of C in the operating system. So files are something which are consisting of multiple functions, and you're gonna be like, hey, that's doesn't makes a little confused. It's a like a little confusing statement what you're saying. So you know, when the time was earlier days when we didn't have these much of complexities, the systems were old. We were having a linear fashion of writing of the code. Usually it was written in really lower language, assembly, you can think. Oh, man, let me clean this up. So assembly language was there, and pretty much things were getting, getting complex, data were increasing, the data and everything, and machine performance are started getting increasing. So with time what they started facing is they were having problem, because with data and all this thing, the problem which they started seeing is that multiple users are also starting contributing into the same machine, because now machine can handle multiple users. And what was exactly happening is that everyone is putting their data over there, and sometimes what might happen that some might have a particular name, and the other user also have put the same name in their data, and that started doing some sort of conflicting. And they be like, hey, there's something wrong with this approach, we are not able to work, and conflicts are increasing day by day. So what they started doing is they started putting all this thing in a single place, and they named it as file with something called as extension. Okay, so there could be a text file, you might be familiar with, and there could be, for example, in our case it's gonna be .cpp. So whenever machine reads, it knows that what it is. So mean, okay, what sort of mean, what it is exactly, what it consists of. So I would know. So CPP, how do you how could you understand this better? For example, you yourself is particularly belong to, why I always draw three legs, man, I don't know. Okay, so you actually belongs to a class called Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens. Then it again belongs to mammals and so on, and then animal species, and somewhere it's you. So you are here. You could anyone said like it's an animal, but what's the extension? It's Homo sapien. Okay. Okay. So that's how a system identifies. Okay, so it belongs to a Homo sapien part. So I can now understand that what this creature is, what this thing is. This exactly goes with the system. So there could be a lot of files, and these files exactly consist of different sort of code, different sort of functionalities, which could be helpful to other functionalities. For example, you could be having a functionality to, how to take a real world example for that. Maybe you have a functionality of let's take subjects. For example, your physics is dependent on what? Mathematics. Well, everything basically depends on mathematics, but for example, it's highly dependent. So if you have been through some basic mathematics, algebra and linear algebra and all sorts of things, you could pretty much started to understand what physics is easily without any problem. Okay, so this is where, so the file of mathematics in your life is helping you to understand physics. Then from physics you might be able to understand more about computers, how current works, how the functionality of computers, registers and all these things are implemented into the circuits, how they're working, how electrons are transferred between all of these, because it's all about the current. It's high voltage and low voltage. Gonna explain. Basically your computers is having only two things, ones and zero, which is basically is a high voltage and a low voltage, high current and low current, and it's been passed through a gate. I actually have discussed this in logic and proof video, you can go and check out that. But basically a gate is something which if there is a high voltage, it's gonna do something with resistors and all these things. It's gonna tell like whether we should be having high or low voltage depending on the condition that which it's been you know integrated with. So your files are dependent with each other. They are highly dependent on each other. This file again is could be dependent on this again. Okay, so that's how these things are. And now here along with your program, there could be a lot of files. So you're running this particular file, and this file is going to be dependent on some other file also. Okay, I'm gonna show you. I'll show you that what that file is. Okay, in this very basic code, I'm gonna show you. Just don't worry about it. Okay, but let's try to understand. In your life also, if you see yourself as an individual and you think that I'm just an individual, like, no, you're highly dependent on your parents, you're highly dependent on your cousins. If you have really good relations, that would be like really good. It means that you're so lucky you're having good relations with your cousins. Could be your siblings. Okay, then there are your friends, it's your school, your college. Okay, these things contribute directly to you to build you in something of a human or someone you could do better execution in the real world. But there are some other, independent dependencies which you might not see as dependencies. Could be your bus driver, could be the government. Because of the government you can have a sustainable life, you can have a stability in your surrounding, in your society. So government is important. Okay, so these factors also, there could be a lot of maybe a vegetable juice guy who sells it could be anything, like there are so many things. So now there are these dependencies also which are somewhere contributing to your life, to your growth, to your execution which you're gonna do in your life. I don't know how I am taking picking this word so much. So these are the thing which makes a system somewhat like that, which makes ability of a computer system to run something, because there's so many files. So main.cpp is not just dependent on few files in its own, the C++ file. There could be other files it is fetching from the operating system. For example, there could be a file for display. It'd be like, hey, I want to use the display, and the OS be like, yeah, okay, I'll give. So let's try to understand this with my example of Arshdeep and the party. So I went to the party. So for you can think that party is like the operating system right now. Okay, the party, and I was the function here. Me just was a function. Yay! It's a party. So I'm gonna enjoy it. I don't know what that is. You can think of this as like enjoyment. Okay, and over there I have few functionalities to execute. Like could be dancing. I did dance over there. Eating. I did that too. Chatting and various other stuff. And after doing this, I also have to tell the OS like I'm done. Or maybe, for example, if I want some other song, I could ask the party, the things which are included in that party, the DJ guy, that hey, can you change the song? So I could also make some request, and if it's been approved, it's if I've been allowed to make those changes by the OS, by Arshdeep in this case. Okay, if he has allowed me to there, and if he said yeah, okay, go on. If he said no, then I would like, no, I cannot do it then again. Okay, because it's his party. But if he has allowed me over there for the execution, and if I'm being allowed, I can say the DJ like, can you change? And he's be like, yeah, okay. So I can also alter some environment variables. That's how a file also works. So whenever you use a main cpp, because this is the main file. Now since there's so many files, how do you know which you have to pick first? So the system and the designers be like, hey, we're gonna name this as main, this function. So this is the beginning, and they're going to be an end. Because see, your function, your system is a finite thing. It's a finite machine. Your computer is a finite machine. It's a function of finite thing. So it could take multiple inputs, but it has to give just one output. I'm repeating it so many times because I just want to make sure that everyone understands this concept. This is really important. Maybe it could seem like a little boring, but I just want to make sure that it doesn't bore you too much, because to me it's the most important thing. It's the beginning of every program, and everyone just hop and started writing the code which doesn't even make any sense. So let's try to see it again. I think that has helped you to understand what file is, why we're picking this main.cpp, why the name that main cpp, because the system needs to know, the OS needs to know what I have to call. For example, this is me. So Arshdeep knows that he has to call me because I'm the main character over there, not in the party, but in my life it's me. not my parents are directly, but he could also set to them if I was like really small, if we were like in school. But nowadays it's like it doesn't even matter. He just called me, I'm independent. He said like, am I independent? Like maybe no. Okay, so Arsip said like, hey, just come over and do this sort of stuff. We're having this, like, yeah, okay, fine, can do it. So this is how your system works. This is why a name called main.cpp is there. There's multiple dependencies coming from the operating system. If the DJ is allowed, if I had, why does symbol look like Django? So these things are there in the environment. I can alter, change if I have the permission. And that's how a program works. Okay, there could be multiple files also. So now first thing, the very first thing, what is this thing? This is if you started reading is hash. We'll talk about this a little while, but this hash include basically means we are including something. And what? That's a file. IOStream is basically a file. As I told you that there are multiple files, and IOStream is one of those, which is basically supporting main.cpp here in this case. Why? Let me explain. So IOStream is basically is ended with .h notation like .cpp. Basically it tells the system that it's a header. Basically it's again it's a C++ code. Again, no wonder that you started think that what this thing is. It's just the notation that they have used so that you won't start putting you can also, I think maybe you can use that. I don't remember exactly. Maybe I had used it in Turbo C. There was this compiler we used in school days, but it's usually this type of extension which it ends .h. And once you include this, it points a pointer to it, like, hey, this file, come here, I need you, I need your help. So IOStream basically means input. Okay, I don't know why I just wrote that and like that, and output. It's a file which is all about input and output, but where and what that stream is. Because in system, what happens is that whenever you send any sort of input, you take any sort of input and you send any sort of output. Let's make these symbols a little logical here. Okay, it's always in a stream of characters. For example, you're entering your password in an ATM machine in bank, so it's gonna be a stream of those 4 pins which you have entered in the machine. And the output could be a stream of data which is being shown over the display on the ATM machine. Got it? So that's why that stream word is there. That's the only reason why this stream is here. And that's what IO is. It's all about a file we're including, because CPP doesn't have, like, me, the main file doesn't have this thing. We can include everything here, and every execution starts from this point. So this is main. Okay, now there is something called what? There is something called integer here. Got it? I want to tell you, I did already have told you that a function always returns something. Okay, if you remember, what I told you is a function returns something. It tells, because for example, if there is this a really long train, just think of this as train, please don't there is this something called at the end which tells like, hey, this thing is ending here. Okay, and it's a train, and this thing tells that, because it's a little separated, it's always being presented at the end. There's an operator always in India. In the case of India, like, it's there. I don't know about outside, but here it is. And this operator is responsible to tell and explain that, hey, this is ending. Same goes with the function. It always returns something, it always ends with something. And for example, I told you that you belongs to a particular class. So here the main is something is belonging to an integer. What that is, it's like a numeric. Integers are simple, means your 0 1 2. As you know from web, if you have access web, which you do already, so in web you always see some sort of return value. For example, 404, you might have seen 533. I don't know if it's there or not, but these sort of values are being returned from the server. If you know a little bit about this system, client server, so your browser requests, for example, you might have requested a particular profile of yours, and you have just entered the login ID and the password. And as soon as you send this request to the server might have looked into it in its file base, and it's like, again, file, okay, it looked into the file, into the memory, it's like, hey, it's not there, so it returns 404. This is exactly what this function does. It returns something, it tells like what went wrong, what happened exactly, did we reach the end or not, because we don't know whether the end is there or not until and unless something is there to tell. So there is something called a return. Right now it's not written. Okay, right now it's not written over there, but there is something called a return. I'm going to explain this syntax too. Okay, so return is something which tells that, hey, the execution is ended. If there is this thing, it's a curly braces. I'm going to tell you what that is. It actually tells the scope of this function. For example, a file also has a scope. A files always end somewhere at the end. Okay, so same goes with a function. It also ends. A function is always going to end. It's a definite thing. So that's really important. But before just ending abruptly and before just dying here, it needs to tell that whether it reached the end or not to the operating system, to the Arshdeep. In my case, if I didn't tell Arshdeep that I'm going, he be like, okay, it might have, maybe I have gone. The only guess is that, the only bet he could make is that I might have gone, but doesn't know. He be like, if he had told me, if he had told me, that would be much better. That would be a pleasant experience for him also, that I valued him and I told him that I'm going, and I just don't just went away. Poof. Okay, so that's how function is. Okay, now the very first thing is, as I told you, we included IOStream, and here is the main function. Got it? This is what main is. It still not returning something, but it is going to. I'm going to tell you what. Now here is the most important thing. There is something called as string, since we saw some numbers also, and there is something called as string. This thing is being able to take any sort of character which is present in your keyboard. Okay, if it is not even in keyboard, it could take. That's what a string is. Okay, and here is something strange characters are here again. I'm gonna tell you what these are. And there is this standard thing. It's actually means standard, so just a short acronym or kind of thing like. And this thing is something also called as a scope resolution operator. I'm gonna tell what that is. But let's try to run this. Oh, we already have run. Sorry, my bad. But how it started to running? It came here. There is something called as compiler. So should we discuss compiler or not? Let's try to discuss it, and we'll deduce this a little by little. Okay, each step by each step. Can we use both displays together? No, let's do this like that. Okay. Now, I told you that your program execution starts from the file, and the system starts read from the top. It goes like this. So first of all, you had an IO stream, then you had main, okay, and then it goes something like that. There is something here, it reads and just runs away. So after including this file, so the hash include, okay, how the machine knows how when the system is reading that this thing is valid or not. There is something called as grammar, or with every language, as you know, with English also, there is something known as grammar, or the rules which the machine, which we all have to adhere when we are working with languages. Okay, so there is something called as compiler. What it does, it compiles. The word itself is explanatory, yeah, that's the word. Okay, so the compiler is there. What it does, it compiles the entire file in one go. Okay, and then you'll be like, hey Devansh, what's going on? For example, if you read a book, you started reading a page, you started reading a paragraph, think of that as a file, that page. And it's like you read the entire page and then you are explaining the what it is. Then there is something called another method, where you read one line and then you explain each line. Okay, and that's called an interpreter. Fine. So there is an interpreter, there is something known as compiler. These two things are related. Somewhere this compiler thing does is read everything in just one go on the page and then explains. Interpreter, on the other hand, just reads the first line and then explains. Simple. You can think of interpreter as an interpreter between two world leaders, could be in between Modi and Macron. Okay, so there is this interpreter, small, just there sitting, like, translating both of these two things, and this is what a compiler also does. But it what it does, it just goes everything all together. An interpreter just one sentence spoken by Modi, it translates to Macron, then Macron said something, and it then translate. Sorry, no. Then it translates back to Modi in Hindi, in French. So there is this guy. It's an interpreter. Got it? If anything went wrong, it corrects over there. If anything happens, interpreter tells the system, hey, there is something wrong at this line immediately. It executes line by line. But compiler be like, hey, I'm gonna go through the entire document at the first, and then I'm gonna tell that if there is anything wrong or there is anything dubious or some sort of warnings. So this is what a compiler is. Interpreter translates. That's the word. Translates. What it translates, so a programming language right now, the C++ is somewhat written in a little higher, it's a hub of higher and lower language. Two things are there. I told you in older days when we were working with machines of those size, there's like assembly language which are how you can search about it. I don't want to go into that deep. There's something which is very close to these 1010, okay, which your machine understand. Then there is this C++. It's a little better abstraction which you could read. For example, you could read that what this is mean in English. You could read hello world here. You don't have to type those binaries, those strange characters in order to get this thing work. Okay, so that's what they came up with a little above. And there is something called a translation works, and that translation actually translates the C++ code to machine code. And whatever you are, no, we're not gonna into that deep, but basically your machine, this compiler does this thing. That's it, that's all it does. Okay, so here your compiler actually compiles this entire thing. And here, as you can see, that here you what you're doing is that that's dash c, that means that you're compiling it into an object we're going to see in a little bit later. But there's something called this thing, this is an object right now, and you're executing in the shell. So dot slash makes it an executable, and then you are seeing an output because this is the only thing which went to the output side. Got it? Now, how it is being shown here, what is going on? There is this thing called as operator. What an operator is, I don't know why this is opening. What an operator is, we're gonna see this thing first because this is the thing which is being shown on the display, on the console. Okay, I told you the console word, console out, console in, input output, console output, output in. Okay, so this basically means console out, and what this thing is, an operator. Console out is basically telling the system, hey, I want to output this thing on the console, and what this thing standard means, on this machine. Because the possibility with networks and internet is that you could also print this somewhere else. Right now this machine is being executing somewhere else on the cloud, but it is showing me here because the console is also showing me here. But if I'm being really honest, this thing is actually getting printed somewhere in the cloud, not on here. So that's a little catch. But standard means that wherever this file is being executed, I want to show this on the console, where the standard console, that means that where this physical machine is there, that's the standard. You could also have that console somewhere else in the remote part of the world where you want to send this output to some other machine. For example, you request something. For example, you request a Facebook page, you request your friend's Facebook page, and maybe your friend has deleted and now that page doesn't even exist. So it gonna send you an error. You ask it and it sends an error, it outputs something. Got it? That's as simple as that. That's not too much of a complex thing. I haven't even made that complex, I think so. So this thing is shown to you here on the console, and that actually tells standard. It's an scope resolution operator. Again, another operator. This thing is an operator. These two things are operator. Okay, what an operator? It operates on something. On what? Between two things, between on even on the single thing. For example, in maths, 2 plus 3 equals 5. These two are operator. The plus operator, the equals to operator. These are operands on which the operation is performed. Same thing is going here. The cout, this thing is an operator, and this thing is a string. Hello world. I'm not gonna type that much. And that's again actually oh yeah, your compiler, what it does, I forgot, it reads this thing like that, cout. Then what it does after having cout, before it went over there, it's like okay, there's something which is matching to this in my library, in my grammar, and it's like okay, cout is there, that means console output. Okay, that makes sense to it, console output, because to its language, to this C++ language, console output makes sense because it's there in its library. Then it sees this operator, it's like okay, one, it's there. Then oh okay, there's another, and that also immediately matches with another part of the grammar in its dictionary which it maintains. It's like okay, so this thing is there. What this thing is, it actually is a directional operator sort of a thing. If you see, the direction is showing is here. Okay, this thing is here. Then there is another operator like this, it's there. It is coming from Linux actually, not Linus. Linus is the creator of Linux. Okay, so it is coming from Linux. So what it is telling the direction, so this thing going in this direction to this thing, that means console output. Okay, so if you it's, and it doesn't even overwrites. That's a catch. That's a very important point. There are four operators like this. I'm so sorry, I just pressed another button on my pen. So this and this, these all are directional operators. Okay, these all are directional operators. It basically overrides completely. So if you're working with files, say for example, we are working with file, and if you want to write something, for example, you went with a paragraph and you want to insert this in a file, use this operator. So entire text is went over there. This is exactly how system works. You wrote a paragraph or in a comment section and you hit enter. Hey, nobody tells in that depth. Okay, so that's just me who's understand things like this. Okay, so I think that is making sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. Might improve on the feedback of yours, and but I think it would be making sense because I'm trying to correlate with your own experience. So as soon as you hit enter, what it does, it sends it. Okay, with this, because that's a new entry, it creates your entire comment is being created and it's being saved as a file is somewhere in your own file. For example, it could be Rohan. So in Rohan's profile, this thing is inserted somewhere at the end. Got it? But if you update it, then I think the operator changes to this, because this thing doesn't overwrites. This thing just inserts at the end. That's the really important catch. Okay, so for example, if you have written something and you want to update something, so you want to add something in between over there, maybe somewhere here, you use, basically a machine uses this operator. Got it? Got it? You got the idea? Okay, so here what is happening with cout, if you are little interested more, I'm gonna try to end this as soon as possible, man, but that's how I love to explain. Okay, now this thing right now is hello. It is going where? It is going to the console output. Then you can see, I told you it doesn't override it, sort of adds more. So you can do this too. Hello world. You can again do this too. Devansh. That is why you were able to do this thing. And that's, we were gonna see that are we able to do this or not. Hey, oh, sorry. I just got a little crazy with my pen. So that's how you can do it, because it's allowing the system, the grammar knows if there are two, then I'm going to work, because the console output is going to have multiple things coming in. It's a stream again. This is a stream, this is a stream, this is a stream. It's going to send the entire stream, IO stream. Okay, So this is what is going on here. It's and this thing is telling, hey, it belongs to standard part. Why scope resolution? Because you might be able to have maybe something on some other network. Okay, you might be having some on other network maybe that has that console output. You want to show that over there, so use these. Let me increase its more size so you could see it much better. So you could, better print out it over that machine, on particular machine. For example, you want to do somewhere like this. Hey, what is, wait, now it's not going to do that. For example, it's network 78. There is a machine, network 78 machine. Okay, so there is this particular file that you have added, and that's a particular thing. So it's gonna tell this undeclared identifier. Okay, it's just part of the improvements which have been done on recent time. So you just could not use or write this every time you want to show something to the console to yourself on this machine. What you can do is do something like this, using, as you can see that I haven't written anything, and it was showing me some sort of error. As you can see, undeclared, it doesn't know that which cout I'm going to talk about. I'm talking about. Okay, I told you that machine doesn't know like which console you're talking about. It could be any console, because there are now multiple machines integrated with each other. So using name space as standard, that's it. Now it knows whatever falls below this namespace, this thing, this, where does this came from? Again, it came from the very file origin. Once we started having, multiple once we started having, a lot of files, and we started having, conflicts with each other. The names are getting, same names, people are two or multiple people started putting same name, or maybe the same data started conflicting. We started having these sort of thing files. But again, if I imported some file, like, listen this carefully, this is important. If I imported some other file, and it now again have, the same name somewhere of a thing, and this name is also same, it's gonna again create a conflict. It doesn't know which one. So you could tell particularly, you could have your own name, and then you can specifically tell that it belongs to this standard, or maybe it belongs to this file one. Okay, you can use this as a scope resolution operator, and tells like, now this variable name is belong to this file one. It belongs to that scope. So that namespace is actually an area in that file which is being defined by you. So it's like a little private area that you have, maybe maybe a particular part of your classroom which you created as your own, private thing, that this is my region in this entire class. So sort of like that, and you create this region here. Okay, so this is what is going on with this namespace thing. Okay, now return. I told you something about return. We're gonna see. So return something. Return zero is the most common one, but there could be, anything negative one. It tells operating system something else. For example, you basically return 404. I mean, it's definitely going to run, but let's see. As you can see now, it executed, it run as I told you, but exit status is 148. That's again an error. Okay, what that is, let's search. See, anything you want to know is just better, just search. No, wait, where does it even came from, man? Can I copy, control T, V, paste exit status over there in C++? So as I told you, there you can go on this website. CPP reference is a good one. Go over there, start reading. I sometimes refer to it. It's been a while, I haven't. So as I told you that the function returns something. Okay, then there is this exit function, could be values. Abort is there, you can abort in between. For example, if user has entered some other, wrong input, you can do that. So exit codes are there, multiple exit codes are there. 148 could be there, 136 is there. These tells that what went wrong, what happened exactly. So for example, segmentation fault, really common, usually happen with stacks and all this memory index out of bound, and these sort of things happen. So Go search it, you will find there are multiple, exit values. But if you write, for example, here 0, the machine knows that okay, it executed successfully, there is no problem with anything, and any sort of error actually occurred. So that's what return is, it tells the system. But what if you change it to something else? We're gonna see. And here is the very first thing, which is the very important thing. It's a string. Okay, so you are printing here, you are printing here. This is the thing, this is a string. I'll explain string a little while, but as you can now know, I told you that you can add more because it's this operator, this is an override, so you can add like Devansh. You can even insert particular space. And what that slash n is, what that slash n was, is basically it tells the system it's a new line. Because now if you don't add this thing, it doesn't even going to know whether this and what this n actually means. So as soon as you enter this particular, like this slash, the system, whenever it started read, the compiler goes like, oh, okay, so I encountered this. It's like an escape operator. It tells in between that okay, I had to do something, and it's n, it's like new line. You can do with t also, you can do with a also. It generates an alert. I don't know it's gonna alert any sound or not, but we used to do it in your turbo c compiler. Used to do it, pings a sound, I think I remember that. So you might probably be able to heard that or not, I don't know. But this thing is there. That's how it works. Slash n gonna send it to new line. You're gonna see that it's gonna fall the new line. So here it's fall into the new line, the shell. Okay, so this is a thing which is one of the most basic part. I think it took us around like about 45 minutes to get to this point to understand this basic code. And this thing tells a system that it's a function. If you remove it, it doesn't going to know what this is. But this thing tells a function because this is the place where you could send multiple inputs and send just a single output, returns a single value. You just cannot do this thing, return anything. Like it, it might doesn't going to show you an error, but what happened is that as soon as the compiler reaches here, it just returns this line is never going to be executed. I can show you. If I write something like C out here, and let's write hi, hi-o, hi-o, anything. Semicolon tells the compiler that that's the end of the line. That's the end of the syntax, that nothing is being. So if you don't do it, it doesn't even know the difference between this and that, because compiler actually removes the spaces and everything. Whatever space you are putting here, it's just for your readability. It doesn't even add these spaces. So it just needs to know that whether this particular syntax is ended or not. It's for this, it's for this. But if you run this, it never going to be executed. See, I told you. So hello world Devansh is there, but it's not being executed because the compiler just returned from it. It doesn't even reach this point. But if you remove this, let's see. I'm going to show you something that's called a comment. You don't have to delete your code every time. I'm going to tell you what comment is. It just if you want to hide, if you want to explain something to, now exit status 100 because it doesn't know what it is, but it executed this, as you can see. And there is no new line. If you add the new line, instead of new line, let's try to add this new tab. Let's see that what it does. It's gonna create a tabular space, and it's gonna show you the exit status. I hope so. That's yeah. So there is this tabular space which we created, and then the exit status. It's just a little space it has created. Got it? That's how your output works. That's how the written works. It's showing some exit because it doesn't even reach this point. It doesn't end it completely. It just return. If you put a return just right here, but it's gonna ask you to return some value because it's an integer type. What if you just want to return, you don't want to send anything? There is something called void. Not a void, but it's void. But now void doesn't even has a return. It just doesn't. Why is showing error? Main must return int. Why? Because see, in computer, it's the main method. This is the beginning. This is the entry point of the machine. and your execution environment. See, Arshdeep needs to know whether I returned or not. Oh, the symbols just swapped. Don't worry about that. Okay. So Arshdeep needs to know exactly. It's an operating system. It needs to know what happened. Where am I? I just went away in between, or I told him that okay, I'm going. That's an important thing. That's why this integer needs to be there. That's why these things needs to be there. Written 0, written 1, -1, written 52. It has a value mapped in the system, which system's gonna know that what happened. But if you wanna run, let's see that whether it's going to run or not. I think it probably would run. Okay, an error generated. It's showing that it must return it. The system is like, you just can't do that. Maybe you can do it with other function. I'm gonna show you a little while, but as you can see, we started started looking into errors, we started looking into things, and it just went till now here because there is no return. But as soon as I type return here, it gonna ask some value because it just cannot return anything null. It null. Again this word. So two things I've came from my mouth is something called null and void. Void means just absence. Okay, it means absence. It's not gonna do anything. And null is like nothing. And you're gonna like, hey, what? Doesn't even make any sense, isn't it? Doesn't. So null means nothing, and void means also means has pretty much nothing. These two terms are quite similar, but null basically doesn't gonna take any space. Void is actually being used by functions. Okay, the functions, and the compiler needs to know whether this function is going to return or not. But once you placed a void in front of a function, the system is like a little confident. Okay, so this thing is going to do something, but it's not going to return something. It's something like that, that it doesn't have that last bogey. The system already knows that, oh, okay, fine, I already know. For example, if Arsif has called some other friend, not me, no, but maybe some other friend. No, I'm not gonna type any name. It could be, for example, take a name of Shivam. Okay, and he knows that he's not gonna make it again, so he's like confident he's not coming. Okay, so it's like something like that. It already told the operating system like, hey, it's not gonna return anything, so just be relaxed, you don't have to worry about it. Null is something, it's related to memory, that nothing is being there, like it doesn't occupy anything. If you have anything, it points to, if it's null, that means nothing. It's a German word basically. I explained this in which video, I don't know, forgot. God, I think it was in set theory, maybe. I don't remember. Oh, I just forgot. I explained this null in a particular video. Okay, so two things are there, void and null is also there. You can check on Google also a little bit more, but that's how it is. So return going to need a value, it needs something. Operating system wants to know. Arshdeep needs to know what went wrong, what happened. Got it? And if you run here, it's not even going to execute anything. It's not going to show you anything. That's it. Because the compiler reached here and just returned. It immediately returns. Return means just return. We don't care anything about here. Okay, so that's what a return is. If you just usually, it returns some sort of a default value. You can search about it if you want it. You can. I'm gonna search Google. Why, seriously? Data, what they've written? Structured data markup helper. What that means, man? When they, okay, that's Bing. That's okay, but whatever Google has done, that's something different. The structured data markup helper. I actually do want to take a picture of it, but I don't know what they have done. But don't switch here. Oh, don't look at my search. God, hi Tanya. You guys are little. Exit status, REPL, LinkedIn. Okay, my recent search are still over there. Okay, don't worry. Where were we? We were looking at the default return value of int. What the? You can just search like that and you can see, go through any link. That's how you have to use the internet. Okay, it's simple. That's how I learned. Go do it by yourself. That's the best thing. Now here, I think are we going to do like this is a very basic thing, and I think what we can also see here is taking input, or should I go with the next video because we're gonna see a lot of thing. We're gonna go with the next video. That would be much better, I would say. Yeah. So here I think we got a very good idea about how functions work, what they are, how a program executes, what are the what are files, how this hash include thing is. It's actually telling the compiler, hey, just include this file. The hash include is basically again part of a grammar. It tells as soon as the system started reading, hey, there's something which is there, a preprocessor. So it pre-processes this file earlier before the compilation. It notes that this file is there, so it doesn't going to read this file thoroughly entirely, because it knows that nothing, anything of this code hasn't been changed. It's like pre-processed already. It's something like a pizza base you already have, so you don't going to build it again. You're just gonna focus on the rest of the part. So that hash actually tells the system that what that is. It's already been pre-processed. We don't have to worry about it. We have to only worry about the next part which we're gonna do. So the main is there. Hello world is, we saw that what that operator is, the direction operator, how memory is a little bit functioning. We haven't went into that much of the memory. I already have a little bit went into that, but we're gonna see what strings are and memory part in the next video. It's already been long. I think it's a 1 hour video. It's around 1 hour, so it's a little, it's quite long, man. It's big, it's a big video. Just took this simple, bunch of code to explain me in 1 hour. So I'm going to see you guys in next one, and that's for this video. Okay, so bye, and just have a good night. It's like night here. It's around what, 11. Also try to go to sleep at early. So it's bye.